Hello, my name is Ben Christopherson. We're here at the University of West London, and today we are going to focus on using a polycarbonate mould to make a chocolate bonbon, and we're going to make a whiskey chocolate bonbon. So for this, you are going to have to be able to temper chocolate. You have to use tempered chocolate to do this. And there is another video that we've already done focusing on the methods of tempering chocolate right from the start all the way through to how to keep the chocolate in temper. So we'll get straight on. We'll take a look at the equipment first. So what you're going to need to do this is polycarbonate molds. Polycarbonate is a type of plastic material which is very durable, and if you look after it, it will last for years. And the advantage of it is you can fill your polycarbonate mold with your chocolate and you can work with it nice and neatly. Don't be tempted to use a different type of material like silicone. You can go online and you can see lots of people making these types of bonbons with silicone molds. That is not the correct way to do it. The way to do it is to use this type of material. These are widely available. They're a little bit costly to buy. Originally that's probably about 17 to 20 pounds, but that can last 30 years if you look after it. So my advice to you is invest a little bit of money and you'll be able to use them for years. Okay, so what other equipment will you need? You'll definitely need a nice scraper, okay, preferably one with a handle and one which is slightly flexible. Always works. Okay, and obviously you're going to need your tempered chocolate. So the process that we're going to follow to make this bonbon is, first of all, we're going to clean and polish the mold. Then we're going to give the mold a bit of a design, so some colour, some shine. Then we're going to make what's called the cavity. So we're going to fill the mold, then we're going to knock the chocolate out, tidy it up, so you've got the shell, it's called the cavity. And then we're going to fill the shell with a ganache, allow it to set. And then once it's set, we will cap the top and then knock the chocolates out and take a look. So that's the whole process together. This is a more advanced level of chocolate work. The most important thing to be confident about at this stage is your tempering. You have to be able to successfully temper chocolate and keep it in temper. That's the important thing. But what we're going to do first of all to get started is we're going to give the mold a polish, really. And you can use a blue J cloth, or if you've got it, you could use muslin cloth, which is preferable, but it's not so common in the kitchen. So for this case, I'll use muslin. I'll use J cloth. So best thing to do is just to take it out, scrunch it up a bit, try and form a little mushroom shape, and then you're going to put it in, press it right in, and give it a polish. What you're going to do here is you'll polish out any leftover colour or cocoa butter, chocolate, and you're also going to shine the plastic on the inside. And the shinier the plastic on the inside is, the polycarbonate on the inside, the more your final product, your finished product, will shine. And that's what you're after, a nice shiny chocolate. Looks good, nice appearance, some nice colour, good representation of what's in the middle, and it's nice and thin. It's one of the key things with moulded chocolates is to get the shell nice and thin, and the foot, when you do the capping, nice and thin as well. Okay, so that's one. We've also got a slightly different shape here. These moulds usually come in this shape, but they also come in a slightly narrower shape as well. If I had to choose, I would choose this shape because they fit on the gastro tray system, so you can fit them all very neatly. But shapes and sizes differ depending where you see your chocolates. You can see an array of different shapes, or you'll see the same shape and an array of colours and finishing. And it's quite good to think about that from a business perspective. If you're running a chocolate shop or a chocolate concession or making chocolates in a hotel, if you have lots of different shapes and size moulds to represent different flavours and types of chocolate, you'll have to have lots of different types of molds, which is more expensive. It's a bigger outlay and it's more difficult to manage. You've got to wait till the molds are ready, and you can only do them when there's enough of the same mold and so on. If you choose the same shape mold and just change the finish, then there's never an issue with whether you have enough molds, managing the equipment, reordering it, so on and so forth. It's also easier to clean. So why do you colour chocolates? Apart from to make them look nice, you can signify what the flavour is inside, and you can tell the difference between all of them. So that's really important. So when you think about colouring a chocolate and you think about the colour and the design, you can obviously be very, very creative. It's an opportunity for pastry chefs and chocolatiers to be creative, but you have to try and think a little bit about what's inside the chocolate, what the representation of the colour is, and what it tells the customer about the product. It's always nice to give an indication. With some flavours, it's a little bit more difficult. We're making a whiskey chocolate today, and so if you think of whiskey, it's sort of a brown gold colour. You know, there's peat, and there's the flavour of the whiskey and whiskey barrels. So you could work from there and you could decide on your design. So you've got quite a lot of creative areas you could explore. So we'll have a look at that today. So that's the moulds polished and shined. So now we can move on to the design and getting them ready to be filled. So what we're going to do is we are going to use a little bit of white cocoa butter and a little bit of shimmer powder. These are two ready available products that you can buy. You will be able to buy shimmer powder from a supplier, no problem at all. And the white cocoa butter, you've got two options. You can either buy ready-made white cocoa butter, which is quite expensive, or you could buy 2 kilos of cocoa butter, and you could buy fat-soluble powder colouring, and then you could make up your own colours, which is what I do here at the university, because it's much better use of funds, and I can have a wider spectrum of colours. So I just mix the powder into the fat and blend it and then sieve it, and then it's ready to use. So that's cocoa butter mixed with fat-soluble white colour. I'm going to use white spots on both of them, and then I'm going to back it with some shimmer colour to sort of give it a sort of glass look, sort of a drinks look, to represent whiskey a little bit, but use my artistic sort of flair and creativity. I'm going to use a toothbrush, again, using a piece of equipment which is not chocolate specific. That's the great thing about chocolate and the creativity of it. There's loads of things that you can use that you've got at your fingertips already, and not massively expensive as well. Okay, so the other one I'm going to use is just a soft artist brush, and that'll be for brushing the shimmer powder onto the mould. Okay, so this cocoa butter I have melted to 28 degrees. And the reason for that is I went straight to 28 degrees as I want to keep as much crystalline structure as possible so the cocoa butter is still in temper, instead of having to melt it to 45, cool it to 27, and then warm it up to 28. So you can just directly melt that in the microwave, constantly stir it, being careful, 30 seconds at a time or so, give it a good stir and get it to 28. And this will mean that the cocoa butter will stick to the other chocolate and it will come out of the mould. All right, so this bit's a little bit messy. Take your brush, don't put too much on, and then don't go this way because you will just spray it all up your fingers. Go this way, you'll spray it onto the mould. And doesn't take long. Less is more. A mixture of some big spots and smaller spots is always nice. If you work in a big production facility, chocolatier or big 5-star hotel, you might have a spray gun and a compressor. And if you're really lucky, you've got a great big container that you can spray into that brings all the air out. But when you don't, the toothbrush is absolutely fine. Okay. So once you've done that, take your scraper, take them both off. Take the excess off. You could take a J cloth again. Take the mould. And that'll completely clean it off. Usually on a cooler day that would set by itself, but because it's a little bit warm today, just going to pop it in the fridge just to let it set a little bit just before I use the shimmer powder. Right, so the next stage, once your cocoa butter has set sufficiently, and we just popped it in the fridge for 5 minutes or so, it's just to add your shimmer powder, which is just an edible powder, and I put a little bit on the brush and then just add it in. This one is sort of like a red, very light red silver shimmer powder, so it'll show up quite nicely on dark chocolate. You've got to think about the colour of the chocolate. So for example, I've used here white and a red silver shimmer powder because I know that when I back it with dark chocolate, it's going to show up. But if, for example, I used a really dark colour like a dark green, and then I use dark chocolate, that dark green would just disappear. So you have to use some sort of technical background thinking about the colours you're going to use and how it's going to show up on dark chocolate. You can mix these powders with alcohol, with a high volume alcohol above sort of 40%, and then you could spray it in with a hand spray, or you could paint it in like this, and as the alcohol evaporates, it will leave a completely different finish. It will leave a mottled finish, sort of like a leopard skin if you liked, which is a really nice finish as well. Obviously you've got to think about the use of alcohol and what sort of finish you're looking for. This will just show up in the background quite nicely. And I sort of like it because it sort of gives a look of, or sort of like a glass, and a little bit of texture and depth of colour with the spots, the white spots. But really, it's very much up to the person doing it and their sort of creativity. But people are most often attracted when they look at chocolates by the appearance. But it's always really good if you can reflect what's in the product with what's on the outside of it in general. So for example, you've got a pistachio, it's really nice if it's got some green in the design. It's just generally helpful. So I'm just brushing some of the luster in. I don't want to use too much. Okay, that's that part done. So those are now ready to use. Both ready to be used for the cavities. So I'll just move them out of the way. If there is a bit of excess in there, you can just tap it out. It won't be very much. It's a very small amount. Okay, so the next part we're going to do the cavity, so where you're going to pipe the ganache. So we're going to fill a very thin shell on top of inside the cavity, and the key thing is here is to have everything ready, be prepared, and practice basically. First time you do it, it will feel quite awkward, but you just need to get you used to sort of the feeling of holding the molds. So you'll need your tempered chocolate, and for this process you want the chocolate as fluid as possible. It's really important. Earlier in another video we did on garnishes, I was making a few of the garnishes where the chocolate was getting a bit thicker, had a bit more body to it. But now you really want to make sure you've got your dark chocolate as close to 32 as you can get it. The closer to 32 it is, the more fluid it will be, the easier it will fall out of these molds. And if it doesn't do that, it will stay in the mold, it will be trapped in the mold, and the shell will be thick, and that's not what you want. And it will help you so much if your chocolate is at the right temperature and fluid. So at the moment this is 30.5. So I'm going to warm it up a little bit on my bain-marie. Just going to wait for that to heat up a little bit. And I'm going to try and get it to 32. The risk here is that I lose concentration, something else happens, I leave it on there for too long, it goes to 33, 34, 35, and I have to start again. So the moral of the story here is don't leave it, just stay with it. It's not quite boiling, but it's still hot. So just keep it moving. One of the most common mistakes that I'll see when working with chocolate, with people learning to work with chocolate with mold, polycarbonate molds, is that the chocolate they put into the mold is too cool, only by a couple of degrees. And the effect that has on the final product is massive. It makes it thick and crunchy, and that's not what you want. You want a nice thin chocolate. So that's 30.9. Need to go a little bit more. When you test the temperature of chocolate, don't just put it in, look at it and go, oh, it's great, it's fine. Put it in, give it a little stir, let it settle a little bit, have a look around. Okay, so that short amount of time on here, just steaming, has done 2 degrees. So it's literally 31.8, so that's fine, where I want it to be. Okay, you'll need your large flexible scraper. Make sure you've got everything ready to go. Give yourself the best opportunity and get a feel of the mold. You're going to need to fill the mold, scrape it off, turn it upside down, knock the chocolate out, turn it round, then scrape it again. So when you start to do it, do that motion first and you'll get a good idea of what you're doing and how it's going to feel in your hands. Okay? So I like these bowls because you can pick them up like that. You've got lots of control over the chocolate. So what I'm going to do is pour from here, and I'm just going to pour it into the molds like that. Some people will use a piping bag. You can use a piping bag if you want, but I always think it's a bit of a waste of a piping bag. Give it a little tap. There's a bit of chocolate to move around here to make sure it's equally distributed. Once you've done that, you can scrape that chocolate back into your bowl. So now you've got the cavities filled. I'll just put it down so you can see. So they're all full and they're ready to go. What you want to do now is give it a really good tap. You can either do this by holding it, giving it a tap, or if you're a bit less confident, you can just tap it on the bench. And you can see the bubbles coming up now. So you'll take the bubbles out of the chocolate. That's how you want it. Now you're going to take the chocolate out. So you're going to turn the mold over and you're going to tap it. So I'm tapping here, moving my way up the side of the mold, and then I'm going to put this down and I'm going to spin it around And I'm also going to tap on this side. It's important to spin it, otherwise one side of the chocolate will be thicker than the other. Have a little look. Happy with the thickness. Do the sides so you can see the thickness. If you're not quite happy and you think it's a bit thick, you'll notice there's a small drip there. I'm happy with that one now. So that I can put there. Just ready to go. This chocolate goes back in. Again, don't try and do all of it at the same time. There's no need to. This chocolate now will probably be about 29 degrees, be quite cool. So now I've just got to reorganize my chocolate a little bit. I'll just test it to be sure. So 29, so back on the steam. So once your mold is prepared, your cavities are done, on a warm day like today, the best thing to do is put it on a tray and let it cool in the fridge. But on a nice cool day in the winter or the autumn, you can just leave it like that on your section and the cool air will naturally cool down the chocolate and it will crystallize. But for this case, I'm just going to put it on a piece of paper, just put it like that and then put it in the fridge, let it set nice and equally. So you've made your ganache, put it into a piping bag and it's around 28 degrees, so it's cooling. And you've got your polycarbonate mold with your chocolate cavities all ready to go. So you're now going to put the ganache in and you are going to allow it to set enough to do the capping. When you fill the cavities with your ganache, you want to leave about 2 millimeters at the top for the foot to go on top. If you don't put enough ganache in, that foot will be too thick. So when you bite the chocolate, there'll be a big crunchy bit of chocolate at the bottom. If you put too much ganache in, there's nowhere for the foot to go. So it's a mess when you cover it with chocolate again to do the foot. So this bit is important and you can take a bit of time doing this. What I recommend you do is hold the piping bag like this and use your forefinger and thumb to stop the ganache coming out. The fluidity of the ganache is important. So 28 degrees. So squeeze your forefinger and thumb and you stop the ganache coming out. And the more of it you do, the more you'll get used to it. Your eye will get used to recognizing that little gap. You might make the odd mistake and put slightly too much in. It's not the end of the world. It just means that the foot will be a bit too thin. It may even touch the top of the ganache, push the foot off. But it's nice not to have big, thick bases, or feet as we call them. Once it's like that, give it a tap. When you work in a big chocolate area, you can have a table that vibrates on a chocolate machine and you just put it on and it will vibrate and then on to the next one. But when you don't, you can just... And you can see that there's a small gap here and this 2 millimeter gap is really important. That one's a little bit over, but it's not a massive, that one as well. It's not a massive problem. Just take a teaspoon, put the teaspoon in, take it out. And just taking out a tiny bit like that will give you that 2 millimeter gap. Give it a little tap. Let it set. Like I've said before, when you do this process of setting chocolate and allowing the cocoa butter to crystallize, it's best overnight. But a lot of the time we don't have that opportunity. So fridge for half an hour and this will be set absolutely fine. So you've piped your ganache into the cavities and you've let it set. And really you just need to make sure that there's a bit of firmness to your ganache before you can start putting the foot onto the polycarbonate. But what's really important is you don't just put the chocolate on and scrape it off to do the foot. You warm it up first so that the tempered chocolate doesn't set on the polycarbonate. And the way you do this is you either use a heat gun very carefully or use a hairdryer. So I'm going to use a hairdryer and I'm just going to warm it up just very gently. And the aim of what I'm doing is I'm going to warm the polycarbonate, but also this very, very edge here of the chocolate is going to warm up slightly so that the foot sticks very nicely to the edge of the chocolate. All right? There we go. Not too much, just enough to warm it up and to warm the side of that chocolate. Then you're going to need your tempered chocolate. You don't need very much. What you're going to do is put the chocolate onto the first 2 rows of chocolates and then you're going to scrape it straight off. Okie dokie. So don't use too much, less is more. So I'm just allowing the chocolate to flow to the back there, so the back one is there, is done, so I don't have to come back for it. So now I'm going to take my scraper, pick up the mould slightly and aim it forwards, and I'm going to scrape the chocolate off. Bit on the side. You can always have a little check as well, in case there's a little air bubble. Can always go back. And that's it done. A little tidy up and then allow it to set. Like I said before, overnight is perfect, but if not, you can always put it in the fridge. All right, so you have your finished product, your chocolates in their mold. All you have to do now is demold them. And like I said before, the best process you can do is to leave it overnight at an ambient temperature, cool at 19, 20 degrees. Let the chocolate contract overnight, the crystallized tempered chocolate contract. But if you don't have that time, if you're under a bit of pressure, you can put it in the fridge, leave it in the fridge for about an hour or so, take it out, leave it 5 minutes at room temperature, and then take it out. And you're going to tap it, and I will show you with another mould. So you take the mould, hold it like that, and give it a very good tap. Okay, 1 tap. If you do 2 taps or 3 taps, what will happen is 1 chocolate will drop out, you won't notice it, and you'll tap it again and you'll squash it. So just do 1 tap, that's the best thing to do. Okie dokie, so here we go. 1 tap, okay. Try your best not to touch the actual chocolate because your fingerprint will always stay on it. And you can tell you've done a good job. The white chocolate, the white cocoa butter was nicely tempered. It's all come out. They've got a nice shine on them, nice appearance, and they look attractive. There's no air bubbles in the top of them. You've tapped it all out, and they've got a nice shape and a nice shine. So what we'll do now is we'll cut one, have a little look, and then we will taste one. So what you're looking for is a nice tidy foot. So you can see a nice tidy foot on the bottom, and then we'll cut it in half, and hopefully what we've got is a nice thin shell. Nice thin shell, nice filling. And they hopefully will be all like that, and you can try one.